everyone, welcome back. This is Blue Valkyrie speaking. Today is day 11 of the 31-day tarot deck self-imposed challenge. Today's deck is the deck illustrated by Giovanni Caselli, and the books are written by Juliet Sharman-Burke. I house it in this, I wrap it first in this bandana. It's 100% cotton, and out of an old box that contained Bluetooth headphones, I covered it, as you see. Not exactly perfect, but I did. I placed some Velcro here and here, and I'm going to add some trimmings later, but it closes like so. And this way it won't open, see? And this way I have a nice place to put it. I am upcycling something without having to let it go to waste, and I am making something that nobody else has. You can make your own, of course. It's just I'm not in the budget right now to be purchasing wooden boxes anymore. And, well, even if I did, if I can upscale or repurpose or recycle something, why not? This deck is very similar in the elements of design to the last 3 decks I have shared with you, the red or white decks. Because it has some of the symbolisms that usually these type of universal tarot decks have, but this one is going to vary, and I'm going to show it to you. The back of the cards is very simple. It has here, here's one of the copyrights. This is a 2001 tarot deck. And let me see here, the same thing. Yes. And this is a copyright of the artist, actually, not of the book, but of the artist. It's still interesting, so I've laid them out. I'm sorry about this. This happened to be one of the survivors of a sort of flood I had. So let's look them up. Haha, I love to do that. Anyway. So like I was saying, there's some elements that you're going to see that are very similar, because they're similar in many cases. The Fool is not about to step into the, precipice, but it keeps the dog, it keeps having a flower, and, his little backpacked and looking into the sun and whatnot. The Magician still looks like the regular ones, or I should say the more classic tarot decks, I should say, with a few exceptions. Like, for instance, you do see here the same elements. You see the pentacle, you see the wand, you see the sword, you see the chalice or cup, but his robes are a little bit different. He's no longer blonde. He doesn't have the little cutesy hat in him, and you can actually see the bottom of his altar. Also, this is drawn more like an altar and less like a table. It's more to the center. To give you another example, the High Priestess doesn't have the moon crown, to say it somehow. The backdrop is different. She still has the pillars. She still is wearing some sort of robe, but she no longer has the sacred text in her hands. Instead, she has some flowers, and on her feet, just shoes. No moon whatsoever. The Empress looks more or less the same, but a tad more pregnant. the cornucopia thingy here and everything, and so forth. The same thing happens with all of the images here. Like the chariot, you can still see it's a chariot. It has the same elements, but it's not the typical chariot that you see all over the place. So aside from that, I mean, we have, I know that when you see the minor arcana, the suits, I mean, how difficult can it be a Ace of Wands, for example? But as you can see, it has these elements like thorns on it, and they are lit with fire because this is a fire element suit, and it's quite different from what you see in a contemporary, well, not contemporary, but a traditional tarot deck of this kind, especially the ones that are usually advised that some beginners get. So if you're a beginner and you don't want to have the typical red or white tarot deck, and you definitely don't want to go as complicated as Crowley's Vision, this is one deck that I truly recommend, because it's really, it has artistry, but it's not exactly the precise, it's not a copy, it's a version. If it were a song, it would be a cover, not a tribute. So let me just put them right back. Now, to give you an example about size when it comes to the books, these are the cards. The book, it's small but thick, which I like, and to compare it to the size of the workbook. The workbook, it's bigger. It all came in a set. It was a very good set. No, actually, these two came in a set. I purchased this separately because I already had the set. So I said to myself, you know what? Why not? And you'll see why I like this workbook, because I didn't have to buy it just because I had the set. Let's start with the book. The book, it speaks in layman's terms. The introduction is very simple. Here, there's the contents. There's the introduction. Talks about the minor arcana first, the suit of cups, all of them, and it gives you a sample reading for each suit. Then it gives you a sample reading using all of the minor arcana. Now, this is done so you can familiarize yourself with the meanings of the cards within the context of a reading. Because I can tell you right now, for instance, let's say here, Ace of Pentacles. Haha. You know, I can just go ahead and read you a divinatory meaning. Like all aces, indicates an opportunity for a fresh new start. Blah, 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 blah. But put that in the context of a reading, and it might change depending on the cards that are surrounding you, or if a combination of cards is there, things like that. And that's why it's important to, and it's easier to learn. A lot of people go first to learn the major arcana. I know I did, but this, I would say it's a different approach, and an approach that I truly recommend for you if you're just starting with the tarot decks. Moving on, and you will see, then it has the major arcana with each one, and gives you sample reading using only the major arcana. Then it gives you sample reading for using the complete deck. And you can repeat these and reread them and try them out for yourself, and that way you can make sure that you understand the context, go back and forth, between them, and that way you can better learn them. The good thing about this, another good thing is that as introductions go, they give you the specifics to the point. It doesn't tell you any lies. It doesn't tell you that it's imagery that came exactly and only from the Book of Thoth or the Egyptian Book of the Dead and blah blah blah. When I start showing you the Egyptian themed decks, you will see that BS a lot. Let me go on. So basically it's a very brief introduction, like I said, with only the most important facts that you need to start. If you want to pursue more the history of the cards, I suggest you do a little research. You can go online, you can read other books on the subject, but if you're just starting to learn, maybe learning too much of the history, especially one as occult and complicated as this one, I'm gonna dedicate a video to the story of the tarot, the history of the tarot, but as of now I'm just gonna concentrate on showing you the decks. And guess what? I was already going to show you 33 days of tarot instead of 31, and I found 2 decks that I was missing, so that would make it, what, 35? Next time I'm gonna do a month and a half challenge. See how that goes. Anyway, so the minor arcana, as I said, tells you first the theme. Suit of Cups is feelings and emotions, because cups are equated with the element of water. And the element of water is usually, said that it's about feelings and emotions. So there you have already the theme of the suit, and it does the same thing with each suit. Then it starts with each card of the suit until it just finishes off with the minor arcana and all the contents like I showed you before. See, it gives you a theme, tells you about the card, what it visualizes, the elements that are important here before it tells you a divinatory meaning. Because as divination goes, you can just go ahead and divine it and that's it. But there's some things that might give you clues that you need to understand. And those clues can add to the divination. If you don't know them, you might be passing on the opportunity of making a complete, thorough reading, as it were. And the same thing goes with all of these. Let me see. Yes, these are the 5s. Okay, here's an example reading using all of the minor arcana. Like I said, I am sorry for that. Same thing with every suit, like I said before. Let me see if I can show you. See, this is a sample reading just using swords. And same exercise goes with the major arcana. Tells you everything and everything. And another good thing, if you notice, there are no reverse meanings. And I adore that fact. By now, this is day 11. If you don't know this about me, you really haven't been paying attention. And if you haven't been paying attention for 11 videos, I mean, man, oh man, we're gonna have a serious problem. Alright, so this is what came in the deck, in the pack. And here's a couple of things I actually like about the workbook. First, its size. It's lightweight and still it's not huge. It's not huge. So, it being not huge is a very good non-huge advantage. I'm gonna stop doing that. I'm sorry, guys. Had to go for it. As you can see, This is the contact paper that I usually like to cover my books in. And if I would have covered this book in it, maybe the damage would have been a lot less. And here in the inside flap, you see the Sharman-Caselli deck, called that way because Sharman-Burke is the writer and Giovanni Caselli is the artist, as we've already established before. Same thing on the back. Now, it gives you this little detail in the back, which I am going to get to later. This workbook works in 2 different levels. First, gives you kind of like, if you didn't have the other book, right? It still gave you a bit of information on the card. It would tell you what it would mean within a reading. It would give you the student comments from the project that these people worked on, and so you can see how others perceive this card. And then the worksheet, which I would recommend to do this in sketchbook or photocopy it, so you don't, unless you really truly want to just go ahead and, write all over the book. I didn't do it. I took a notebook and I took actually one of those lab notebooks that had quadricle paper on one side and blank in the other. So that's what I did. So in the worksheet, what you have is the card in blank for you to paint it as best as you want or as it calls to you. Here you have name, date, place, time, because the time is something you'll see later what I mean. Comes here the coloring exercise. Choose your colors to reflect the fiery energy. Notice the imagery on the card that reflects the elements, such as the carved salamanders, the mythical creatures believed to live in the heart of the flame. I have an issue with that, the way that's worded. I'll tell you why in a second, but here's the salamander, at least one of them. Because the thing is, this is my issue. You have no idea how many wannabes and how many Wiccans. Because I'm sorry, guys. You have done it. I have seen you. I have heard the horror stories. As a heathen, I believe that heathens did sacrifice animals and humans, but we are, and other times, our worldview can mimic theirs with implementing it towards this century we live in. You have no idea how many actual poor reptile salamanders have been tossed into fire pits, all because they belong to the element of fire. Guys, I'm gonna make a video. I'm gonna make a note of all the videos. I'm promising you guys. I'm gonna make a video to let you know what kind of salamander the elemental of fire is actually referring to. But since the best visual way to put is an actual lizard salamander-like creature, I'm gonna let it slide. The personal association. Use the student comments as a way of getting yourself thinking about this. This you should apply to yourself, not if you were the one teaching. It can be used as a teaching tool, but it can also be made as a self-teaching tool. Next, you have what this image means into my life, the readings in which it was significant, See reading record sheet off. And that's where I'm going next. See, for all of the readings that the book was giving, it also has here what they call, wait, one more. Ah, my bad. This is why it's so hard to do this one-handed. Okay, creative interpretation. This is something very good that is not just to... It aims to advise us to not just stay within the confines of the written meanings, but to actually be creative in that interpretation, add our own interpretation. If someone draws something and two people can have different interpretations for it, it should be similar but not copycat one with the other. You know? And then it gives you this hint to try this yourself. This form of instant story creation can be great fun. This is one technique that I might discuss later at Tarot Tips, but not today. This is what I was getting to, the record sheets. Now, when it comes to reading the tarot for others, but you can do this with yourself too. Just don't tell anyone you did. I mean, if you hardly have people you can practice with or for, you can practice on yourself as long as you promise to yourself that you're going to be true, that you're going to be happy with the results, that you're not going to be biased, and that's the worst thing. I mean, that's the hardest thing, I should say, because everybody's going to be biased. Anyway, so I'll show you what they have here. Celtic crossbred. It gives you the positions. See, 1, 2, 3, whatever. Each position represents something, but here the first six are worded differently than what I am used to. And actually, I never learned to be the first one, the present, and the second, what crosses you. Let me show you. The present, no, this would be the significator, what I usually see it or read it as. You can read it as this. There's no problem with that. Just know that there's more than one way to see this, what the cards mean, the positions I mean. And the second was the matter at hand. In that sense, here the matter at hand is what crosses you, and that actually makes sense. But if you say the present and what crosses you, then it goes what is above you, number 3, right here, and then number 4 is here, number 5 and number 6. How I learned these are like the near past, which is from today back to 6 months or less. The further past, it had another name, but what if the past that is further than 6 months ago, and so forth. Your future position, how others experience you should be how others see you, your hopes and fears, and the outcome. Some people, and I have to say this, some people, and this is valid for anyone who wants to work the tarot that way, some people, if the outcome position comes out a court card, not even a court card, I should say, just one of the regular minor arcana, they try to draw 3 more cards, and if there's no court cards nor major arcana as the outcome, they tend to say that the outcome then is not too specified or it's too variable to be read at the moment. That's just some people. It all depends how you like to work. That's not mandatory. That's just one way I have seen people do it. The same thing goes for the star spread. Name, date of the reading, question, main points raised, tells you what is good for the spread. This is a more generalized outlook. This is a particular look for looking at spiritual or psychological issues. I should do this one a lot. Kidding. Anyway, then the other, let's see, there's 4 more. There's a horseshoe spread, as you can see. Same exercise. You write this information down. I even go as far as to put in the name, date of the reading, method used. I also write the lunar phase and the time of the reading, because that can bear importance if you're doing a full profile, that you're going to be considering the astrological side of the reading. Because remember, what you read right now, 30 minutes from now can be changed, 30 days from now, 30 hours from now, and so forth. And also, for those of you who do practice and believe astrology, remember that the time where the stars and planets are at any given moment during the day, it's also something that can influence absolutely everything you do. If making magic spells during a certain phase of the moon, during a certain day and hour, influences your work, the same can be said when you are making a spread. So this is the compass spread and the horoscope spread, which I would say is one of the more universal ones, because a lot of people, you're always going to find a horoscope spread somewhere in any book whatsoever. But again, you can either photocopy these, you can make a template in your computer and print them out, or make the template, fill them out, and then print it to either keep it in your records or give it to the client or email it to the client, and then keep the electronic record somewhere where it's not going to be hacked or stolen. Or if you're going to do this for your own personal study, as I did, like I said before, I purchased a notebook and I did all of the exercises that you see here, even though this was something I purchased around 2001. That doesn't mean that even though I was reading way decades before that, that doesn't mean that I cannot learn. I believe that once you think to yourself that you've learned everything there is to learn about something, you stop learning already. So you never stop learning, people. I want you, if anything that I want you to take from this video is 2 things. Recycle, upscale, upcycle, reuse, repurpose. Please, our planet depends on it a lot. I mean it. And the other thing that I want you to take from this is that, aside from keeping the records, like journals and all that stuff, is that you never stop learning. You never stop learning. Repeat the mantra. You never stop learning. Doesn't matter how many decades you've been at something, you never stop learning. So, guys, thank you once again. I am sorry that this video is almost